Maybe.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Mosser. That is one of my best friends, David Cahoon, and you're tuned into another brand new installment of the Commissioner's Couch Fantasy Football Podcast. Tonight marks episode 21 overall and the 8th chapter of our second season. It's honestly wild to think, how much ground we covered so far, since we kicked the thing off back in January, David. Week after week, we've been peeling back layers of this 2026 draft class, building a full picture of who these prospects are and, how they actually went on the field. If you've been riding with us this long, you know the journey, by heart at this point. We opened the season 2 with, 2 straight weeks of quarterback mechanics, decision-making, arm talent, the whole spectrum. We covered it all for quarterbacks. Then we shifted to 3-episode deep dive on wide receivers, breaking down every flavor of pass catcher you can think of. And over the last 2 weeks, we've been living in the running back room, studying 12 different running backs with 12 completely different identities. And tonight we closed the book on that position, the running back position. This is the final week of our running back series, the last wave of ball carrier, big ball carriers before we move on to tight ends, for next week's episode. By the time we wrap up tonight, we'll have evaluated 18 total running backs. If you've missed any of the earlier shows, go back and catch up. Every one of those conversations builds the context for what we're doing today. But this group, we're hitting tonight, they bring a whole new set of traits to the table. We're doing Terrion Stewart out of Virginia Tech, Jan Miller out of Alabama, Quentin Joyner out of Texas Tech, Desmond Reed out of Pitt, CJ Donaldson out of Ohio State, and then Robert Henry Jr. out of UTSA. Some of these guys win with raw acceleration, some with density and, finishing power, some with instincts and pacing. A lot of them just, I think you're going to find out they could be flat out problems when the ball touches their hands in the NFL. And I'm just really, really excited to, get these guys going here. So settle in, grab a drink, and kick your feet up on the Commissioner's Couch because episode 21 starts right now. And we're closing out the running back position with one more loaded slate for the 2026 rookie prospects.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
I'm really excited. I'm pumped to get into these running backs. It should be a really good group. There's a lot of really sneaky players here. I think there's a lot of sleepers, some might even say. So I'm excited to dive in. So
yeah, man. Before we jump in though, not a lot of people in the live right now, but that's okay. There'll be a lot of people who can, listen to this on Spotify tomorrow or whatever. But I just want to take a quick moment to talk about something that means a lot to me and my family. I've been talking about it on all my podcasts. I've been tweeting about it. I'm actually live on Facebook now, so you have probably seen that there as well. But my son James, my 4-year-old son, is in the the Ranger Rick Junior Ranger competition. Actually, the first wave first section is actually ending tonight. So he has to be in the top 20 in his group, and he is ranked second, and it actually ends in 1 hour. So it looks like he will be progressing on to the next round. A lot of people have voted. We're super, super grateful. If we can continue to have those votes. Dave, do you have the QR code there for me, buddy?
Oh yeah.
I'd greatly appreciate it. You can just scan that QR code or go on my Facebook or on my Twitter at DynastyCLE, and you will see my tweets about my son. If you've seen any of the videos that we've been posting, he's absolutely a knack for nature and is just an encyclopedia. Like I said, a young David Attenborough, if you will, when it comes to just animals. He is always correcting me. It's a lot of fun, man. And he is in this competition. He's going to be moving on to the next round. So we just appreciate the support and the continued support with that. You can check that out at DynastyCLE on Twitter.
All right. Yeah, please go vote for James. He deserves all the love. And
he's awesome.
Support. So yeah, if you haven't yet though, I know Mosser just mentioned it, but please go follow us and subscribe to us wherever you are at. So whether that be Facebook, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you're at watching.
Spotify, everywhere. We are on every streaming platform.
Yep. And turn on automatic downloads on wherever you get your podcast from, because we go live weekly and we don't want you to miss out on any of the great information that we're going to provide. So get an edge up on the fantasy football world even before the draft gets here. So please go ahead and subscribe and turn on automatic downloads.
Please do that.
All right. Well, before we jump into anything else, we do have some sponsors that we have to read through. So we are with the Inside Edge Network. We have been growing rapidly, which is amazing to see. But our network is main sponsored by Allie Rose Fragrances. Discover Allie Rose's collections of handcrafted candles and body mists made with clean, minimal ingredients. Every product is thoughtfully created in small batches, free from harmful toxins for mindful, everyday indulgence. Head over to allierosefragrances.com right now to order and use the promo code InsideEdge20 to receive a special discount.
Yep. We're also brought to you by Monster Moments Photography. They are a husband and wife wedding photography team based in Cleveland who specialize in providing the best wedding photos in Northeast Ohio. Check out their website at monstermomentsphotography.com. That's MOSSOR, momentsphotography.com, or right there on your screen if you're watching live. David, how you doing, man?
I'm okay. I'm ready for the weekend, but we're so close. One more day, and then we're there. But yeah, just had some family over for dinner, and so really was grateful for that. And now we're here. So how you doing?
Doing good, man. Good. Yeah, sorry for the late start here, guys. A little technical difficulties, no problem, though. We are up and running. I'm excited because the NFL draft is a couple weeks, man. I mean, we are so close, but I get to go on vacation next week.
Let's go.
A little unplanned, you know what? Let's just do it. So we're going to actually pre-record our tight end episode for next week tomorrow, but you guys will get that next week. Nonetheless, you will get an episode for tight ends, but I'm so excited going to Florida, going to the Gulf for like 5 days and just going to relax and take my kids to the beach. And it's going to be a lot of fun, man. I'm really excited. So
yeah, that's awesome. So we got 2 weeks till the draft, right?
2 weeks, 23rd, right? Thursday.
That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. It's sneaking up on us.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. It's going to be big. I have a fun feeling for this NFL draft. It should be a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're not planning on doing anything, come hang out with us during the draft. We're going to have a live show going on. Please come join us. Give us all your questions. If you're like uncertain about a player's landing spot and what implications it'll have for fantasy football, come hang out with us. Send a comment. It'll be a great time.
We'll be breaking down prospects, you know, how they fit with their teams, fantasy implications, might have some guests, might have some giveaways. It's going to be a blast. You guys need to be here Thursday, April 23rd, the first round of the draft. We will be from the first round from pick, 1 to pick 32. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Come hang out with us and we'll talk some fantasy football during draft day, man. I'm really, really excited.
Yeah.
It feels like a lot of work has been, leading up to this point, and it's just gonna be fine. A little relief to get that monkey off my chest a little bit.
Oh yeah, and move forward too, and talking about what implications it'll have for the actual season and players and everything. It'll be really fun. I'm excited. Yeah. All right, so we are at our last week of talking about rookie prospect running backs for the NFL draft. If you've not listened to anything else we've talked about, go ahead and go back and listen. We've broken down, had 2 weeks of prospect quarterbacks, 3 weeks of rookie wide receivers, and we're finishing up our 3rd week of talking about running back prospects for the draft. And as Monster said, we will talk about tight ends next week. Yep. So listen to everything you haven't. We had some great breakdowns of the quarterbacks, some amazing talks and conversations about wide receivers and the implications that they'll have for this rookie draft class. And we've really discovered a lot of really great running backs, I thought. And so go back and listen if you haven't yet, because it's going to help you in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. As David said, this week we are closing the chapter on the backfield. Running backs are one of the most challenging groups to evaluate, I think, because the position demands so many different traits at once, instincts, timing, burst, balance, processing, the ability to create when, structure collapses, let alone, do they have good hands? Some guys thrive in traffic. Some guys win in space. Some are built to handle volume, and others are designed to tilt the field with a handful of touches, And the 2026 class, I think, has given us every possible version of that spectrum. And, tonight's group brings another mix of styles. I think there's home run hitters, compact power runners, multi-purpose threats, backs who simply refuse to go down on first contact. This is the final wave of our running back study. And by the end of this episode, like I said, we'll be covered 18 total prospects at the position for the 2026 rookie draft. let's dive into the last slate of the 2026 running backs, David. I am so excited to close out this position in the right way. Let's have some fun.
Let's do it. All right. Shall we get into number one?
Number one.
Number one.
That is going to be, I believe we have the same person.
Terrion Stewart. Yep.
Yes. Terrion Stewart, running back from Virginia Tech. Mosser, where is he ranked on your running back rankings?
He's my running back 9. How about you?
9. Okay. I have him as my number 24 running back.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love
Great
it.
start. Great start to the week.
Hey, brother, let's do it. All right. Yeah.
All right, so give us a little bit of a breakdown. Terrion Stewart, I know that he last played for Virginia Tech, but I know that he was at Bowling Green, I think, at one point before that. Mm-hmm. So give us a little breakdown of his college background.
Yeah, I think he's one of the most punishing runners in this entire class, I would say. He's been that way everywhere he's played. He started, like you said, off at Bowling Green. Right away, you could tell he wasn't built like a typical Mac back. He was thicker, stronger, and I think flat out just harder to bring down than anyone he lined up against. When he transferred to Virginia Tech, the question was whether that physicality would translate to the ACC competition. And honestly, it didn't just translate. I think it popped. He became one of the toughest runners in the conference to square up against. Every week, you see defenders bounce off of him, slide down his legs, or get dragged, for extra yards. His production tells a story across his career. He averaged 5.7 yards per carry multiple times, including seasons of 762 yards, 898 yards, and 469 yards on a relatively modest workload as well. He wasn't a volume master. He was an efficient machine, I would say. And when you watch the tape, you see why. He's decisive, he's violent, and he wastes absolutely no movement. Coaches rave about him. They talk about his maturity, his toughness, the way he sets the tone for the entire offense. I think he's the guy who turns a 2-yard run into a 5-yard run into a 9. He's the heartbeat type back every physical offense once, for their team.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he is very powerful as a runner. But I feel like that was really the only thing that kind of stood out to me when I watched his tape. Very powerful, kept his feet moving, would run guys over, but that was kind of like the only thing that I feel like kind of stuck out from his game. It was just power.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious to see how that will translate to the NFL. But when you talk about an archetype or a mold, how would you describe his mold? Is it just this power that you see, or is there more to it than that?
He's a downhill enforcer. Everything about his game is built around his leverage, his density, and his controlled aggression. He doesn't dance. He's not a dancer. He's not a space-oriented, jitterbug at all. He's a back who wants to get north immediately and make defenders feel every bit of his 225-pound frame. I think what you asked what defines him. He stays low and he's in square, which makes him incredibly hard to knock off a balance. He hits creases with urgency. There's no hesitation, no wasted steps. He thrives in gap, in duo, inside zone, which translates really well to the NFL. I've talked to, over the past few weeks about a lot of these running backs who thrive in that. It just translates really well. Where the picture is clear and he can attack downhill. I think that's where he's at his best. He finishes runs like he's trying to send a message. I think he's the type of runner who forces defenses to tackle perfectly. If they don't, he's bouncing off, spinning through or falling forward for extra yardage. And the best part is, I don't think he's reckless. His footwork inside the tackles is cleaner than most power backs that I've seen. He's efficient, he's compact, and he's always under control.
Yeah. I feel like I'm curious to see what this jump for the NFL is going to be like for him. Because he did look really dynamic at certain points at Virginia Tech and even at Bowling Green for a little bit. But when you talk about him jumping to the NFL, what do you think will be some of that weakness that might give him a little bit of a challenge as he adjusts?
Yeah, I think he has limited long speed. He's definitely not a home run hitter. He'll rip a couple chunk plays here and there, but he's not running away from NFL safeties at all. And I definitely think he's not a dynamic receiver by all means. I think he's reliable, but he has not a great route tree, and I don't think he'll be flexed out wide often. I think his early challenge would probably be creating when the picture isn't clean. I think in college, his physicality bailed him out of muddy situations, but in the NFL, defenders close faster and hit harder. They're bigger as well. He'll need to lean, even more on his vision and footwork to stay efficient, even, when the blocking, I think, isn't perfect. But I think, his play style is built for the league personally. I think his processing gives him a real chance to thrive early. I think he's got decisive vision. He's got great processing. His contact balance is elite. He's got pretty decent short area bursts as well. And I think in terms of pass protection, he's probably one of the best in this class because of his density. And that's going to keep him on the field a lot, or probably more than other prospects because of that versatility. Not necessarily him catching the ball. I'm not saying he's great for fantasy there, but he'll have more opportunities because he's on the field because of that pass protection.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens because I feel like the power thing I think can translate to the NFL, but at the NFL level, people are just bigger and faster and stronger, and so I'm curious to see if that will still hold up to be true for him. It can be. I think we've seen people make that leap and it still works for them, but I'm curious to see if this will work for Stewart specifically. So when it comes to like a summary for fantasy football, give us a breakdown. How does he project as a fantasy relevant running back in year one?
Yeah, I think Terrion Stewart is the kind of back who becomes a fantasy stabilizer. He may not be the flashy guy. He's not going to get a 70-yard touchdown ever, maybe, unless I don't think it's going to happen. But he's the runner who gets you, I think, consistent early down volume, definitely goal line opportunities, especially since he's finishing forward so much. I think a positive game script usage. I think reliable, like a reliable weekly floor as well. He's a perfect fit for offenses that want to control the line of scrimmage and lean on physicality. And because he's so good in pass protection, I don't think he'll come off the field in obvious passing situations, which, quietly boosts his snap share. He's not a league winner type running back, but he's the kind of running back who can give you maybe RB2 production, maybe RB1 upside on a week, depending on matchup and workload or how many times he gets in the red zone. If he, but if he lands on a gap heavy system with physical identity, he becomes a plug and play fantasy starter. So,
okay. Yeah, I think there's a viable path for him for NFL fantasy football relevancy. I feel like it'll just be very touchdown dependent. And I feel like he's going to need to go to a landing spot that's very much like, hey, he's our goal line running back, and he's going to power through and get those touchdowns that are from like the 10-yard in. I think we've seen fantasy players be relevant like that before, but I think that's kind of for year one for him specifically, his path to how to be a reliable piece in fantasy. The player comp that I have for him would be Zach Moss. You talk about a powerful running back with a little smaller stature too, but somebody who scored touchdowns throughout fantasy football in his short career. And I think there's a lot of similarities there with his game. The ideal fit. Ooh, I got a frog in my throat. Ideal fit that I've got for Stewart would be going to the Carolina Panthers. Running back room that's kind of up in the air. You've got Jonathan Brooks coming back. Is he actually going to ever play? Who knows? I'm a believer in Jonathan Brooks, actually. But I feel like
you are, because you drafted him second overall 3 years ago and has been crying ever since. It was
not second overall. It was somewhere in the second round. But yeah, somebody I think is going to need to come in and be the kind of like goal line back, and Terrion Stewart can definitely step in and fill that role for that offense. Because they're not the biggest players on that offensive side. Their quarterback room's really small. Their running back room is pretty weak. So I think somebody like a Stewart can come in, kind of be that enforcer type of a running back, which would provide a lot of good change of pace, I think, for that room, and be somebody that can score a lot of touchdowns. And so I think it's a perfect, ideal landing spot for him.
I don't hate it.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. All right. Well, are you ready to go to number 2?
Let's do number 2, bro.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Number 2, we've got Jam Miller for Alabama, the running back from Alabama. Where is he ranked on your running back board?
Yes, Jamarion Miller, Jam Miller. He is my RB10 from Alabama.
Okay, that's not bad. I got him as my running back 16.
That's not awful. Okay.
It's not awful. That whole 10 to like 20 range is all the same in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, this is the third tier for a reason. So
yeah. So, yeah, let's talk about Jam Miller, though. Running back from Alabama. Give us a glimpse into his story in college. What was he like? Running backs from Alabama typically do pretty well. So what makes him different from the rest, I guess?
Yeah, I think Jay Miller is one of those Alabama backs who never got the full workload. But every time he touched the ball, you saw exactly why he was a top 100 recruit coming out of Texas from high school. He walked into one of the deepest running back rooms in the country and still carved out a role because his traits were impossible to ignore. The burst, the toughness, the ability to turn a crease into a real gain. His career arc is interesting, I think. He never had the 250 carry season, but he stacked efficient production year after year. 668 yards and 7 touchdowns in 2024, 504 yards and 2025, despite a very crowded rotation as well. Over 4.6 yards per carry across multiple seasons, and a relatively sneaky receiving production, 19, 16, and 4 catches in 3 different years. He wasn't always a spark plug, but he's the guy who injected life into an offense when I think they needed a jolt. And then you look at his testing numbers and it all makes sense. A 4.4 240, 1.53 split, explosive lower body metrics. That's not just a good athlete territory. That's, I think, legitimate NFL juice. Coaches at Alabama consistently praise his maturity, the way he handled his competition, obviously in that room, how crowded it was, his toughness. He never complained. He never coasted, and always made most of his touches as well. He's one of the most physically gifted backs in this class, and his resume, I think, reflects that. So,
yeah, I agree. He's physical. He's tough. He runs really well and very compact. I'm curious to see how he can translate to the NFL, because I feel like he might be one of those running backs that's like overlooked because he wasn't the most productive in college. But I still feel like there's talent there that's maybe untapped.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about an archetype and a mold, how would you describe his play style?
I think he's a burst first, downhill accelerator. Everything about his game is built around getting north with urgency and forcing defenders to react to his speed. I think what defines him is, he hits the line like he's been fired out of a slingshot. He's really quick on the acceleration. His pads stay tight and aligned, which, let him slip through traffic. He thrives in, like I said, the NFL translatable RPO downhill, duos, inside zones, where, he can press, he can plant, he can explode. He finishes runs with real force. He's not just fast. I think he's also violent, which is fun to watch as well. He's the kind of back who punishes hesitation as well. If a linebacker takes a false step, he's gone. If a safety takes a shallow angle, he's going to be passed on. And because he's compact and dense, he doesn't lose speed through contact the way that most smaller backs do. I don't think he's a finesse runner. He's a tempo-controlled hammer with, I think, real acceleration.
Interesting. I like the hammer analogy. That's an interesting one. So let's talk about his transition to the NFL. As I mentioned earlier, I feel like there's some untapped potential that he has. How do you think he could find success early on in his NFL career, and what do you think might be some challenges for him?
I mean, look at his strengths. I mean, I think he's got, like I said, explosive acceleration. I mean, his 1.53 split shows up on every carry. He gets to top gear instantly. That's going to show up immediately in NFL. He has a downhill urgency. He wastes no time getting vertical. His pace forces defenders into bad angles. I think he's got some compact power. He's about 210 pounds. He runs bigger than his size, and he absorbs contact and just keeps rolling. He's got great instincts when it comes to cutbacks as well. I really love his cutbacks. He's excellent at reading, backside lanes and inside zone and punishes over pursuits. And in pass pro, I think he's competitive as well. He squares up, he anchors, he brings real effort. And he's trusted on third down, at least in college, which I think could be important for the NFL. In terms of weakness, I think maybe limited diversity in his routes. He's a reliable check down option, but he's not a natural separator in the passing game. And I don't think he's necessarily a breakaway sprinter as well. He's fast but he doesn't have long speed. So early challenges, I think, the big adjustment for Jam Miller would be, handling traffic at NFL speed. In college, his burst bailed him out of a lot of bad looks in the league. He'll need to be more disciplined with pacing, footwork, just so he can stay efficient when he isn't necessarily picture perfect, because he's not going to be. But I think his processing is a lot better than a lot of people realize. And I think the physical tools that he has mixed with that acceleration could be very exciting going up to the next level.
Yeah, I can see it for sure. The acceleration, I think, is a big calling card for his game. He's got the ability to turn on the jets real quick. Yeah. I think when it comes to fantasy football, I'm curious to see what happens, because I feel like he's got potential that is so dependent on opportunity. And so I feel like that's going to be so dependent on where he lands. But what do you think for fantasy football for year one? How can he be relevant and kind of find a role for himself?
Yeah, I just think he's the classic fantasy value pick who is going to outperform his draft slot. He has goal line power despite not being a huge back. He has definite exploding upside and can rip off chunk plays. I think he's good enough in pass protection to where he's going to stay on the field more often. And he fits perfectly in offenses that use RPO, downhill, or inside zone, and, as their bread and butter. So, he's not the type, you draft expecting RB1 numbers out of the gate for sure, but he's the kind of player who can take over a backfield if injuries hit, or if he lands, like you said, with a coach or in a room that, values decisiveness and burst and isn't necessarily very crowded. I think in the right situation, he could be a weekly RB2 with some spike week potential. But long-term, I think he has the athletic profile to grow into a decent role in the NFL, given the right opportunity.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I'll be very curious to see where he goes come draft weekend, because I feel like that'll be really important for him. The player comp that I've got for Jam, though, would be a player who I feel like had a decent career fantasy-wise, but might have been a little short-lived. But that would be DJ Dallas, running back way back in the day. It really wasn't that long ago. But yeah, somebody who had some explosive plays, was able to hit some home runs. And somebody who kind of was in a tough fantasy spot, but still found value and still forced his way to kind of get the ball and get the rock.
Bro, I ain't never heard of DJ Dallas in my life.
Really?
I'm Googling him right now.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I feel they're
all right, Jam.
When I watched the tape, I saw a lot of his game. Maybe DJ Dallas was just a sleeper that I really liked in fantasy.
Must have been, yeah. We all had those guys.
But yeah. The ideal landing spot that I've got for Jam DJ Dallas Miller would be the San Francisco 49ers. I know Christian McCaffrey is the running back one there, but behind him, there's really nobody. So you're going to need somebody to come in and kind of give Christian McCaffrey a break. And you're also going to need to think of the future too. And somebody like a Jam Miller, who may need a year or two to kind of get his feet under him in the NFL while learning behind somebody who's really a do-it-all running back. And maybe Jam Miller can develop into that, but maybe not. I think it's a great landing spot where he can kind of get some more like actual design runs set up for him in those inside zones or scheme fit specific runs, and really hit some home runs and kind of relieve a little bit of what CMC does, both in the running game and in the passing game. And so I don't hate it. I think there's a role for him to carve out in a room like that, where he can clearly establish himself as a running back too. But obviously until CMC's out, that's kind of his room. So
real quick, Eunice, Raji says hello. Hello. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you. Just want to put that up there.
Yeah. I like that we can show the comments. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get back into our another sponsor that we've got for our network. We are sponsored by Fanatics. So I'll play this ad. Hey, everyone. This is David from the Commissioner's Couch podcast. Fantasy football fans, you found the #1 destination for all the officially licensed football gear you will need this NFL season. The NFL shop from Fanatics.com features sportswear and accessories from brands like Nike and New Era, as well as NFL coolers, so you can head to the tailgate repping your team. If you're looking to add to your collection of tailgate gear, you need to check out our grilling items and coolers. With official player jerseys, polos, and hats, we've got enough gear to keep you repping your favorite NFL team throughout the whole season. Go to Fanatics.com by using the QR code on the screen right now to celebrate your fantasy football teams. Again, that's fanatics.com, or use the QR code on the screen to buy all the gear you need to rep your team. Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck. Again, that is fanatics.com. I don't have a QR code for some reason. It disappeared on me this week.
Oh, weird.
But yeah, go to fanatics.com and purchase anything you want.
Yeah, you can go on our socials at Inside Edge Net, and the QR code will be there, or the link will be there. So just go to our socials on Twitter, and you can check that out there for us.
Perfect. All right, are we ready for number 3?
Number 3, my lord. Number 3.
Number 3, my lord.
Number 3.
Number 3, we've got Quentin Joyner, running back from Texas Tech. All right, Moss, where do you have him ranked?
It's my RB11.
RB11. Interesting. I have him as the running back 27.
Yep, there you go. I knew that was coming.
Yeah. I there's potential for him. I like some of his game. I just feel like nothing was really dynamic for me or like jumping off the page when I watched him. He looked like a very average run-of-the-mill running back to me. So
okay,
I'll be curious to see what your thoughts are of him, though. But give us a breakdown of his college career. Obviously, Texas Tech, where he was at last. But yeah, what was his story like at the college level?
Yeah, I think he's a modern space back. I think he's very clean as a modern space back for this entire class, probably. He came into USC as a highly regarded recruit, but once he transferred to Texas Tech, I think everything clicked for him. The Red Raiders gave him room to operate, and he rewarded them with explosive efficiency. If you look at his production, 478 yards on just 63 carries this past season, averaging 7.6 yards per carry, plus 12 catches for 89 yards. That's not, volume. I think that's impact. Every time he touched the ball, something positive happened. Even, in his first year, when he barely saw the field, he still averaged 6.9 yards per carry. What stands out to me is how quickly he adapted to his new system too. Texas Tech runs a tempo-driven, space-heavy offense, and Quentin Joyner fit it like he's been there for years. His coaches, loved his preparation, the way he elevates his offense, with his ability to create in space. I don't think he's, not just a change of pace guy. He's a legitimate weapon and can tilt the geometry of a defense. I actually really like him.
Yeah, I saw a lot of the quickness and agility and that popped up on his screen, on his tape, but I feel like that was really it. There was just like that one trick pony of I'm just faster than you and I'm going to outrun you. So I'll be interested to see if that translates at all to the NFL. But when you talk about his mold and style as a runner, how would you describe it?
I think he's a fluid one-cut accelerator who thrives when he can stretch the defense horizontally and then explode vertically. Everything he does is smooth. I think he's got great footwork. He's got great pacing, smooth transitions. He's one of the backs who looks effortless, and until you realize he's already 12 yards downfield. Excuse me. I think he's built for outside zone and spread concepts where vision and timing matter. He has the lateral agility to glide, plant, and then burst without losing any balance. He's dangerous in space. He forces defenders into recovery mode pretty much instantly. I think he's a natural pass catcher who can actually run real routes as well, not just checkdowns. He's not the bruiser. He's not, a grinder by any means. He's not going to be a space manipulator. I think he's a back who's going to win with angles, acceleration, and body control.
Interesting. Yeah, I just feel like I described him as a all or nothing running back. Like he's either going to hit you a home run and run the whole play in for a touchdown, or I feel like he's not going to get you much at all.
I disagree.
Okay, that's fine. This is just what I saw.
We're allowed to disagree.
Yeah,
you're wrong. No, I'm just
first time. But no, there's potential there. I feel like a lot of the weaknesses for me was once holes were kind of clogged and there was a lot of traffic in there, I feel like he was not very able to navigate that and find paths or create paths for himself. But what do you think? What will be some of his weaknesses as he transitions to the NFL?
He's not a power runner. I think he's tough, but he's not built to consistently run through square contact. I think his pass pro anchor as well is not as strong. He's willing, but bigger linebackers are going to overwhelm him. His technique has been improving as I saw throughout the years, but I think it's definitely still a work in progress. I think early, I think the biggest adjustment for Quentin Joyner is going to be handling NFL interior traffic. In college, he won with space, he won with timing, but in the league, he'll need to prove he can stay efficient when the picture is muddy and the lanes are definitely not as clean. But his vision and burst give him real chance to adapt quickly. I think he's got elite efficiency. Like I said, averaging nearly 8 yards per carry in a Power 5 conference is absurd, regardless of the usage. I think he maximized every touch given the limitations. I think his acceleration and fluidity is amazing. He goes from patient to explosive in one step, and I think his transitions are absolutely seamless. Open field creativity, he's one of the best space players in the class. I think he understands leverage and how to manipulate pursuit. He has decent hands too. He can catch naturally, which is going to translate in the NFL well and in fantasy well. He runs a relatively diverse route tree, and I think he can become a real threat after the catch with his acceleration. And I think he's got scheme versatility as well. He's going to fit spread, zone, tempo, motion heavy offenses without needing to be a force fed touches every game. So
yeah, I can see it. I'm very interested to see where he lands because I feel like that'll be a big spot for him. But I can see how he can transition to the NFL and become a dynamic player. I think it'll need to be very scheme dependent, but I can see it. So when it comes to fantasy football relevancy, we talked about how quick he is, how agile he is, but how do you think he projects to be relevant in fantasy for year one?
Yeah, I think for PPR, he's going to be really beneficial. I'm not going to say cheat code, but if he lands in the right system, he's going to benefit, a lot. He's a natural receiver. I think he's got real route versatility, like I said, and his ability after the catch is very, very good. He's explosive through, enough. I don't know how to say this. He's explosive enough to, turn limited touches into meaningful production. You saw that with his yards per carry. He fits perfectly in offenses that use motion, spacing, and tempo, which is great for fantasy. And I think his efficiency, I can't talk about enough about his efficiency. He doesn't need 20 carries to matter. He's gonna, if it translates from the college to the NFL, he's gonna averaging 8 yards per carry is insane, but he's going to average relatively, hopefully high percentage or yards per carry. He's definitely not a goal line demon. He's not the type of player who can give you RB2 value. Maybe RB3, maybe once in a while RB2, just depends on the game. With formats that, have upside for spike weeks that, think best ball, PPR, when he gets space-oriented matchups. But if he lands with a creative play caller who understands how to weaponize speed and leverage, I think he could be one of the sneakiest fantasy values in this entire class. It's just all depend on where he lands. So
yeah, I agree. I think for me, where he can become so important for fantasy football is if he's the running back 2 on a team and the running back 1 goes down. He then becomes a very, I feel like, PPR league prospect, a very good best ball prospect as well.
Maybe waiver wire pick up the year type candidate.
Exactly. Yes. Ideal. Let me do a player count before I do a deal landing spot. The player count that I've got for him is actually somebody I really like a lot, and I feel like did not go to the best landing spot, but still has made the most out of his opportunities, even though they've been limited. But that would be Jaleel McLaughlin. The running back for the Broncos. Yeah. Somebody who came out of a small school, Youngstown State. Somebody who really relied on that speed a lot, was able to make those one cuts and just burn past people. But when he got to the NFL, his opportunities were limited. But when he had time to shine, he really showed, I guess, how versatile and how good he was as a runner. And so I think Joyner can kind of fit in a mode that's like that. And so I think of a team where they've already got like a running back 1 established. He can kind of beat some people out for that running back 2 role. And if this running back 1 goes down, he can step in and kind of be like a home run hero ball type of a player. That would be the Atlanta Falcons. We talk about Bijan Robinson being the running back 1 there, an all-star stud. If he were to miss any time, who's behind him?
B Robinson,
Brian Robinson, who's been on
first off, time out. I cannot wait for people to mess up and accidentally draft Brian Robinson like 1st or 2nd overall instead of Bijan, because they say on Sleeper, for example, it says B Robinson and then literally their team in a picture. And if you don't know these guys' pictures, you're
screwed. People did that last year and they weren't even on the same team.
Well, now they're on the same team, so you gotta really pay attention. But continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. And so Brian Robinson, I feel like, is somebody who Joyner can beat out. I think there's enough speed and versatility in his game to where
you're saying opposite. You're saying Joyner can beat out Brian Robinson?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, you said the opposite. Sorry.
No, my bad. And so you go to the Atlanta Falcons. If Bijan were to miss any time, I feel like Joyner can step in and kind of be that sneaky, sleeper type of a player that can do really well for a couple of weeks. He may not be the running back 1 for the whole season, but when he needs to step in and be that change of pace, that home run type of a player, he can definitely fit that mold. And so we have Coach Stefanski there who loves to scheme up his running backs, as we saw with him and Nick Chubb. And maybe Joyner can kind of fit in well into that system. Yes, we know you don't like Kevin Stefanski, but he has done well with the running game in his career. And so I think somebody like a Joyner can really step into that running back room and find a lot of success. So we'll see what happens.
I don't hate it.
Well, thanks. All right, number 4.
Let's do it.
Number 4.
Number 4, we have a Desmond Reed, the running back out of Pitt. This guy I actually liked a lot. Where is he at on your list?
You go first.
I had him at number 17.
I have him at number 17.
Yes!
First one of the year. Let's go. Whoa.
Shut up. We need that noise. Somebody who I thought was really dynamic and versatile in his ability to play. Somebody who I felt like just really did not live up to his stats, I guess, in his college career. But let's jump into his college career. What was his story like? We know that he played at Pitt last, but was he there before? Did he transfer in? And what has his growth trajectory been like?
Yeah, I think he's one of the most electric space players in this draft. He's been that way everywhere he's played. He started at Western Carolina, and from day one, he's the kind of runner who made defensive coordinators miserable. He wasn't just productive, he was explosive. He stacked seasons of 824 yards, 897 yards, and 966 yards, all while averaging 5.3 and 7.0 yards per carry.
Wow.
Between that, for those 3 seasons. Then he transferred to Pitt, and the big question was whether that, FCS magic would hold up against the Power 5 athletes. It did. Instantly. He didn't lose a step. He didn't lose confidence. He didn't lose identity. He just kept making people miss. In the receiving production is a huge part of his story too. He put up 212 yards receiving, 283 yards, 579 yards, and even at Pitt, 317 yards through the air. Those aren't checked on numbers. Those are actual weapon, numbers. Coaches rave about him. They talk about his toughness, the way that he creates offense even when the blocking isn't perfect. He's undersized, but he plays with a chip on his shoulder and a level of confidence that shows up every time he touches the ball.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that you talked about there. The receiving skills, the open space. I feel like he was just a killer in that. I liked a lot of things about his tape. So how would you describe his play style and the mold of a player that he is?
Real quick, interesting fact. When I did a startup draft it's a C2C draft, so with college players last year, we did a draft with a bunch of like college experts and a bunch of other guys, and he he was the first pick in the draft last year over Jeremiah Love, over everyone. Someone thought, oh, this guy is, going to be that guy going from, the FCS to Pitt. He was the number 1 pick overall. So, I mean, some experts believe in him for sure. I was like, what the hell's going on? But nonetheless, pretty interesting. So
the bold strategy. We'll see if it pays off.
Right. All right. So you're talking his archetype.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. He's a short area lightning bolt. Everything he does is sudden. The cuts, the acceleration, the lateral movements. He's the kind of back who forces defenders to hesitate because they know one wrong step and he's gone. He thrives on the perimeter where he can weaponize his quickness. He's deadly in outside zone and spread concepts that stretch the field. His change of direction ability is absolutely elite. He can snap off cuts, without losing balance. He's a natural pass catcher who transitions into yards after catch mode instantly, I think. He's not built to run, through a defense. I think he's built to run around a defense, and when he gets into space, he's one of the most dangerous players, I think, in this class.
Yeah, I agree. When he's schemed open, even on those like short little check down routes, like he can really kill people when there's open space around him. So talk about his transition to the NFL. He seemed to do well transitioning from FBS to Pitt. What is it going to look like to take another leap forward and transition from college to now pro football?
Yeah, I mean, he's got elite short area quickness, which I think is going to transition well. His first step is ridiculous. I'm not kidding. He gets from 0 to full speed faster than I think almost anyone in this class. Maybe Zachariah Branch, Mikael, like most top receivers. He's that quick. I think he's got open field mastery as well. He understands angles. He's great with leverage. How to make defenders miss without dancing as well. He's just really efficient with that. He's got receiving upside as well, which you saw in college. I think he's one of the best pass catching backs in the draft. He's got ability for wheels, for angles, option routes, all of it. He's going to be a guy who is going to be able to do those in the NFL. Like I said, he's a perimeter threat as well. He forces defenses to widen their structure because he can beat pursuit angles to the edge. Just consistent production, man. 4 straight seasons of high-end efficiency. Like I said, 7.0, 6.8, 5.3 yards per carry, back-to-back seasons. The limitations for the NFL, it's going to be the first thing is his size limitation. He's 174. Definitely not built to absorb, repeated interior punishment, by all means. And obviously with that as well, his pass pro ceiling is not going to be great. He's, not very big to be, protecting that quarterback as a running back blocker. I think the biggest adjustment for Desmond Reed will be, handling interior speed and contact density. In college, bounce off of trouble, with his pure quickness, but in the league, he'll need to be more disciplined with his hands and, with his read, and pacing as well to avoid, getting swallowed up inside. But I think his vision and his elite burst give him a real chance to carve out a role early in the NFL.
Yeah, I can see it, and I really hope he goes to my landing spot that I have for him because I feel like he would fit in good.
I have a comp.
Oh, okay. So let's talk fantasy football relevancy, though. Okay. How does he become a player that you can trust in fantasy football year one?
He's going to be a PPR flex monster if he lands with the right creative coordinator in the NFL. Like I said, he's a natural receiver with real route ability, absolutely explosive, and can turn a screen into a 40-yard gain like that, dude. I think he fits perfectly into offenses that use motion, spacing, and perimeter touches. He carries. He needs 8 to 12 touches and a smart play caller in the NFL. He's not a goal line back. He's not going to be the 250 carries a year workhorse, but in the right system, he's the kind of player who gives you weekly flex value with the potential, for spike weeks when the matchup favors space players. I do like him a lot. I had him ranked as my 17th overall running back just because of his size. I'm just a little concerned about how that size will translate in the NFL when there are bigger, faster, and stronger players than there were in college. Specifically, he's only had 1 year at a Power 5 school compared to 3 years at FCS. So that's a major jump from just being 1 year at a Power 5 to the NFL. So
true.
We'll see. I do like him a lot, and I think for fantasy he could be a huge value. But like I said, he's got to find the right creative coordinator.
Yeah, I agree. So what was your player comp before I jump into mine? Because I'm curious what you had.
I saw a lot of Keaton Mitchell in him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I like that one. Yeah. Mine is, I feel like it's a similar type of a player. Nyheim Hines, somebody who's a little smaller frame, but little jittery, juke bug.
Yeah.
Somebody who can really run routes really well, be a good receiving threat, but just was really dynamic in open space. And Nyheim Hines turned that into a really good return specialist too. And so I think there's some potential for that for Desmond Reed in his game as well. But we talk about ideal landing spot for fantasy football specifically. I feel like for him, there's one team that would really, really benefit from taking a flyer on him late in the draft in either late day 2, early day 3, or whenever. And that would be the Seattle Seahawks. You talk about a running back room that's kind of wide open right now. They don't really have anybody. Their best player, Super Bowl MVP, just went to the Chiefs. Their running back 2, who they like a lot, tore his ACL. And so right now that room's wide open. If they take a running back early, so let's say they go with like a Jordarian Price, what would it look like if they took another one later in the draft because they need more bodies there, and somebody like a Desmond Reed's there and kind of was their receiving back? He could be really, really dynamic for them, and I think he could also be competitive enough to push for that running back 1 early on in the season. Somebody who's just dynamic in the open space, somebody who's really good at receiving, and I think that he could carve out a really good role for himself in fantasy football right away if he goes to Seattle. So,
be interesting.
It would be interesting, and I like that landing spot. But yeah, we will see what happens though. All right, are you ready for number 5? Or we have an ad read?
Ad read, yep.
That's right. All right, so as we said, we've been growing here at the Inside Edge Network. It has been awesome to see. But this sponsor is brought to you by sportsmemorabilia.com. So whether you're searching for a baseball autographed by your favorite World Series slugger, a signed football by an iconic Hall of Famer, or the jersey of a world-famous soccer star, you've come to the right place. Here at sportsmemorabilia.com, the web's leading source of authentic sports memorabilia, you'll find more than 500,000 authentic products from nearly every professional sports league, team, and players. Not only will you find your next prized sports possession with ease, thanks to their superb customer service and tremendous site experience, you'll have the satisfaction and peace of mind that every product listed comes with with a certificate of authenticity that is fully backed by the sportsmemorabilia.com lifetime authenticity guarantee. So go ahead and head to sportsmemorabilia.com to get your collection started today. Again, that is sportsmemorabilia.com. All right. Are you ready for number 5 now?
Let's go.
A number 5.
At number 5. He sounds like the guy from SpongeBob.
Yeah.
So number 5, running back from Ohio State, C.J. Donaldson. Where is he ranked at on your big board?
My running back, 31.
Oh, wow. I thought he would be higher for you. I have him as my 14, actually. I liked him. Yeah, somebody who I felt like was like an old school type of a style of a runner, but I'm curious to see what your breakdown is of him. So he was the Ohio State running back this past year. Give us a little bit of his glimpse since you are Mr. Ohio State. What has his story been like? How has he grown or not progressed during his time at Ohio State?
I think he's a very unconventional running back prospect. Probably one of the most we've seen in years. He didn't grow up playing the position. He wasn't recruited as a running back. He arrived at West Virginia as a tight end and a wide receiver hybrid. And that coaching staff basically said, let's see what happens if we hand you the ball, and just gave him the ball. And honestly, what happened was chaos in the best way possible. He immediately became a mismatch nightmare, because defenders weren't used to tackling a 6'2", 230-pound runner who moved like a much smaller athlete. He sacked seasons of 526 yards and 8 touchdowns, 798 yards and 11 touchdowns, 734 yards and 11 touchdowns. And even as a rotational role in Ohio State, he had 10 touchdowns on just 96 carries last year. That's rare touchdown efficiency. His receiving production also reflects, his hybrid roots. Multiple seasons of 50-plus receiving yards, including 96 yards and a score in 2025. When he transferred to Ohio State, the question was whether he could, refine the details, his footwork, his pacing, vision. And to his credit, he made real strides, I thought. Coaches talked about his intelligence, his willingness to learn, the way he embraced the physical demands of being a full-time back in college football. I don't think he's a typical running back prospect. He's a converted weapon who brings a completely different body type and skill set to the position.
Interesting. Yeah, I think he reminded me of, like, as I said, an old school type of a runner, just very like downhill, reliable. You say to go to the B gap, I'm going to go to the B gap. Very much a one read type of a runner. So when we talk about their mold and style of play, how would you describe CJ Donaldson?
Yeah, stylistically, I think he's a power forward in cleats. He's a downhill force who uses size, length, and stride power to overwhelm defenders. He builds momentum like a freight train. Once he's rolling, good luck stopping him. He's got long arms that keep tacklers off his frame and extend his runs. He thrives in gap and duo where he can get downhill without hesitation. I think he's surprisingly nimble for his size as well. He's not twitchy, but he's relatively controlled and somewhat efficient with his body as well. He's not a perimeter dancer. He's not a quick juker or jitterbug by any means. He likes, creating collisions, and he likes to impose his will on the defense. I think because of his wide receiver and tight end background, he brings a level of receiving polish that you almost never see from a 230-pound back. He can legitimately line up in the slot and run real routes too, which I think is interesting for a fantasy aspect.
Yeah, I would agree. There's, I think, some untapped potential there. I think there's still a little bit of just rawness to his game. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. So as he transitions to the NFL, how would you describe his strengths and weaknesses? Well, how can he grow, and what would be like his main calling card?
His main calling card is his rare size and physicality. I don't think there's another back in this class built like him. He's a load to bring down. We saw that. Most of us probably here are Ohio State fans if you're watching locally Cleveland. So I think he's got great stride power as well. I think he can cover ground relatively quickly and force defenders to, have conservative angles, I would say. And obviously there's a tackle breaking ability there as well. Arm tackles aren't going to matter with him. Shoulder shots aren't going to matter. He's going to shrug off a lot of contact unless you have a really good tackle. And I think he's got decent receiving versatility as well. And probably some decent short yard dominance in the NFL as well. I mean, he's got double-digit touchdowns in multiple seasons. That should tell a story. He's definitely a finisher. So,
yeah.
Weaknesses. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, I was just going to say, I think that definitely does tell a story that he's able to go and get to the goal line when you need him to.
Yeah, I think weaknesses, his pad level is a challenge. He does not have great pad level, and that's going to be not great for the NFL. At 6'2", staying low through contact is going to be harder for him, and than it is definitely for shorter backs. I think he's got limited lateral agility as well. He's efficient, but he's not going to be, string together multiple cuts into tight spaces. What kind of player he is. I think his early challenge in the NFL is maybe handling interior quickness. College defenders, they bounce off of him, but there are some big boys in the middle of that defensive line, and linebackers who are going to meet him better with better leverage, more discipline. I think he'll need to continue refining his footwork, his timing to stay efficient when when the lanes aren't clean, but he's got definitely size and versatility that will give him a margin for error that most bats don't have, I think. So,
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that size translates to the NFL, because sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. So we'll see. So when you talk about fantasy football, how is he relevant? Is it just so touchdown dependent, or is there more to his game than that?
He's going to be a goal line hammer, and I think his receiving ability is going to help him a lot in the goal line as well. He's got legitimate receiving chops, not just dump offs. I think he can carve out a role even when, in a committee, because his skill set is so unique. He's going to be pretty good for fantasy, I would say, if he gets on the right team. I think he could carve out a role pretty quick. He's built for red zone usage and short yardage situations. He's not going to be the 20 touch a game guy. That's not his profile, but he's the type of back who can give you flex value through touchdowns and receiving work. If he lands in the right offense that leans on power concepts, he could become a weekly starter. I think he's a long-term upside swing player, a player who could carve out a niche early and grow into a bigger role as he continues to refine at the position. I was actually surprised he was so low on mine as well. I just liked a lot of guys, compared to him. But for fantasy, I probably would like him a lot more. He's probably ranked higher for fantasy in general. So,
yeah, that's fair. All right, so the player comp that I've got for him would be somebody we already mentioned on the show tonight, but that would be Brian Robinson Jr. Talk about a big body running back. Maybe Brian Robinson's not as big as him, but somebody who kind of a sneaky good runner, kind of doable and dynamic in the passing game. I think CJ is probably a little bit more dynamic in the passing game than Brian Robinson is, but somebody who is just reliable and consistent in his ability to run. And so I think there's some similarities there. The ideal landing spot that I have for him would be a team where he can kind of become that main goal line back. And that is the Kansas City Chiefs, I thought. You have Kenneth Walker there, but behind him, Kareem Hunt was there. Is he going to continue to be there? Nobody knows. Could somebody like a CJ Donaldson step in and become that like Kareem Hunt type of a runner and enforcer in the game? I think so. And be somebody that can get a lot of touchdowns for a team that loves to score touchdowns. Put him in when you're at the goal line. Let him just plow through people. Easy. Done. He's done that at Ohio State, and I think he can do it in Kansas City. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for him to be that kind of like goal line working back that just gets touchdowns all the time.
I don't hate it. I actually like it a lot. I think that'd be fun to watch.
I like it. I like it when you agree with me. All right. So number 6.
Let's do it.
All right.
Number 6.
Number 6, that would be Robert Henry Jr., running back from UTSA, University of Texas, San Antonio. Where is he ranked at on your board?
You go first.
I have him as my number 21 running back. Kind of on the lower end, but really not, I feel like, just kind of like, hey, it's a running back. That's there. Number 21. What about you?
Running back 12.
Ooh, higher up on your board. Interesting. Just give me a breakdown. What makes him a dynamic running back that you like from San Antonio?
Let's talk about his background first. I think he is one of the most relentless runners in this entire class. His path is as impressive as his tape. He didn't just come from a powerhouse program. He didn't just, he didn't come from powerhouse program. He didn't walk into a national spotlight. He came out of the JUCO ranks, dominated there, and then stepped into UTSA and immediately became one of the most productive backs in the country. His resume speaks for itself. 1,045 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2025, 706 yards and 7 touchdowns the year before, 588 yards and 11 touchdowns in 2023, averaged 6.9 yards per carry his last season. That's just not good. That's crazy elite efficiency, I'd say. He wasn't just a runner. He added 18 catches for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns last year, plus 21 catches and 199 yards the year before. He's a reliable and productive receiver when he's called upon as well. Coaches talked about his preparation. They talked about his toughness. The way he sets the tone for the entire offense. He's the guy who, turns routine handoff into a statement run. He's the guy who forces defenses to tackle perfectly, or, they're going to pay the price. I think he's one of the most battle-tested, hardest running backs in this class. And running back.
Dude, I follow what you're saying.
You know
Don't
what
worry.
I'm saying. And I think his production backs it up as well. So
yeah, no, I can see it. He's nimble. He's got a good change of direction. I saw on his tape. I'll be curious to see, because it was FBS, how can he make that massive jump from FBS all the way to the NFL? But I think there's potential for it. He's got the ability, and he's got the I think nimbleness and change of direction to do it. So give me his style of play. How would you describe it?
He's a compact downhill punisher. I think everything about his game is built around controlled violence. His leverage is great and being very urgent as well. He explodes through creases with a level of force that shocks defenders, I'd say. His pads stay low. His base stays wide, and he is almost impossible to knock off a balance too. I think he's a momentum runner. Once he gets rolling, he's a nightmare to square up against. He's not flashy, but he's, a tone setter who wants to run through contact and oppose as well on the defense, and that's fun to watch. And I think because he's so compact, he slips through tight spaces that bigger backs can't navigate. He's built for trench combat, and I think that's going to translate to the NFL pretty well.
Interesting. Yeah, I think there's a lot to like about him. I'm curious how he will look between the tackles at a league that's so physically demanding like the NFL.
Sure. Lisa, that's a big jump, but
huge jump, yeah. So
I think running back is probably one of the easiest positions.
Honestly, it probably is, yes. Yeah. But when you talk about making the jump, what would be one of the biggest challenges for him as he transitions?
He's got a limited receiving ceiling. He can catch the ball, sure, but his routes are not that great, and he won't be flexed out at all. He's definitely not a long speed threat as well. He'll rip chunk plays here and there, but he's not going to be running away from corners and safeties by any means. The biggest adjustment for Henry, I think, will be handling NFL pursuit speed. I think in college he could out accelerate, interior defenders well, and and win with pure urgency. I think in the league he'll need to, be more disciplined with his pacing, and that'll help him avoid getting swallowed up by faster, more disciplined fronts. But he's got great leverage. Like I said, his burst is incredible, and he's got some fun toughness that is apparent on film. I think that's going to give him a real chance to carve out a role early. He's got elite short area burst as well. A 1.62 split shows up instantly on film. He's going to hit that line and go. His contact balance is outstanding as well. He's got great finishing power. He's got, I think, efficient vision. He can read leverages quickly, and I think he commits with conviction. There's not wasted motion with him, and I think he's tough in pass pro, which is important for that transition and to stay on the field as well. So,
yeah, I would agree. There's definitely a lot of toughness in his film. So, fantasy football wise, why does this matter? How can he become a relevant piece in year one?
Give that dude a role, and he is going to be a volume-driven fantasy asset. I think he's a natural train mover. Coaches love guys who can keep the offense ahead of schedule, and I think he's a guy that can do that. Like I said, this is a big jump, but I think with this position specifically, it might not be as harsh as a jump. I think he's a goal line threat with real finishing power. Like I said, he's efficient. He's not going to need 15-20 carries to matter for fantasy. I think he's good enough in pass pro to stay on the field, which I think is important. He's not going to be a PPR monster. He's the type of runner who can give you maybe running back 2 production in the right system, especially one that leans on downhill concepts. Maybe if he lands with a coordinator with, who values physicality, consistency, he could be one of the sneakier fantasy values of this class. Maybe a player who doesn't need to flash to deliver weekly points. So,
yeah, I agree. I think for him, landing in the right system would be really important for fantasy football.
Yeah, that's with a lot of these guys too. Especially when we're getting through 18 prospects. Yeah,
absolutely. So the player comp that I've got for him is somebody who I thought actually had a similar kind of role in college, but Tariq Cohen, somebody who was a very nimble, good change of direction player. Wasn't really thought of highly coming out, but really carved out a role for himself in the NFL.
What a fun fantasy player for a while too, until he got hurt.
Very fun fantasy player. And so the landing spot for him, honestly, where Tariq Cohen made a lot of success would be the Chicago Bears. You talk about a offensive scheme coach coordinator who wants to run the ball downhill. You talk about a room where there's opportunity to get some touches. It's a very much right now a running back by committee room. Obviously, you have DeAndre Swift, who's kind of like running back one there. Roschon Johnson, who's making a name for himself at the end of last year. But somebody like Robert Henry can come in, learn a little bit, not needing to be like a pressing person in week one, but as the season progresses, he can kind of develop into somebody who's kind of carves out a role for himself in that committee. And should somebody else go down, he can kind of step in and be relied upon. He I think could be somebody who develops into a long-term starter for a team like the Bears. And you get that coaching with him, he could really become a dynamic piece for that offense and become a dynamic piece in Dynasty League specifically if you get him this year. So
yeah, I like it.
So yeah, there you have it. That's our 6 prospects: Terrion Stewart, Jam Miller, Quentin Joyner, Desmond Reed, CJ Donaldson, and Robert Henry Jr. So who do you think, Moss? I need to ask you this every week. Who do you think has the best chance to shock the world and become a fantasy relevant piece year one from this group?
Ooh, good question. Size. The size I'm nervous about, but Desmond Reed could be pretty sneaky, I think. So yeah. CJ Donaldson for fantasy, obviously. I mean, so many touchdowns. I think there's a true goal line asset there, but he's going to be scheme dependable, excuse me. But man, Desmond Reed, I think I could really see him in the right system, just being so much fun to watch, man. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think Desmond Reed has the highest ceiling of this group. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, we got Dubby.
All right. We have one last sponsor, and that would be Dubby Energy Drinks. Are you looking for an energy drink that does not crash your day? Well, I'm here to talk to you about Dubby Energy Drinks. Clean energy, bold flavors, no jitters, and no crash. Helps you lock in and focus. See why people won't shut up about Dubby at dubby.gg. Again, that is dubby.gg. Yep. There are over 15 flavors to choose from. Be sure to use a promo code Inside Edge Network, Inside Edge 10, sorry, to save 10% on your order. Again, that is Inside Edge 10 to save 10% today. And it's scrolling along at the bottom of your screen.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, that is gonna wrap up our running back room. How you feeling about it all, Moss?
Dude, I'm ready to be done with rookie prospects. I'm so tired, bro. I've been doing, I swear, 60-hour weeks since January trying to do all these prospects and stuff, and I'm still not necessarily done, but done enough. I'm so done. I'm going on vacation. We're gonna have this draft, and we're gonna start fantasy football here. In a couple months after that. I'm excited. Yeah, I don't know. Real quick, again, if you are rocking with the show, please do us a massive favor and hit our socials. We are everywhere, as David said earlier in the show. We're on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, at The Commish Couch, on Facebook under The Commissioner Couch Podcast. Every one of those pages has our website linked, pinned, thecommishcouch.podbean.com. And that link takes you straight to our hub where you can find us literally everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, everywhere. Player FM, Listen Notes, Podchaser. I could go on. Click the platforms you use. Please follow the show, subscribe, drop a 5-star rating, leave a review, turn on notifications, set up auto downloads. Again, please follow us on all socials at The Commish Couch, and also please show us some love, man. Even doing a couple of those things, even doing just one of those things, help us so much more than you know. And if you play fantasy football or you just love the game, you're going to want to stay plugged in. Let me and David, we say it every week, but let us be your competitive edge all season long. Again, a huge thank you to Monster Moments Photography. Monster Moments Photography is a husband and wife wedding photography team based in Cleveland, owned and operated by Ryan and Hallie Monster. For the past 10 years, they've captured more than 100 weddings across Northeast Ohio and beyond, always working together as a true two-person team. Their style centers around authentic emotional storytelling, documenting the real moments between two people in love and creating images that feel natural, comfortable, and true to the couple. Rooted in Northern Ohio, but inspired by their travels, Ryan and Hallie bring a warm, personal approach to every wedding day. Their work blends experience, consistency, and a genuine passion for helping couples relive their best day through timeless photography. Learn more at mossormomentsphotography.com. That's MOSSOR momentsphotography.com. And real quick before we get out of here, I did talk about it earlier in the show, but my son, James, my 4-year-old son, is in the Ranger Rick Junior Ranger competition. It's an incredible program that highlights kids who genuinely love wildlife exploration and the outdoors. And if you've heard me talk about it for the past few weeks, probably more than once, you've seen me talk about James, all these videos. That describes James perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
He approaches nature with, this curiosity and excitement, that's honestly inspiring. Whether we're out on a trail or just walking around in the neighborhood, he's spotting, birds, identifying tracks. I'm not kidding. Identifying tracks as a 4-year-old. It's hilarious. Hilarious. Like
little Steve Irwin.
Like we were on a hike yesterday. I'm not even kidding. It's a little side tangent, but he saw, it was clearly a dog footprint, but a large one. And he's like, hold on, does it have retractable claws or not? Because if it does have retractable claws, it's a big cat and not a dog. Like what?
Hey,
So
he's not wrong though.
I
He's
learned
not
that.
wrong.
So right now, actually 9:00 right now, actually, the first wave ended, and he had to be top 20 to go on to the next round. He was second overall. So he is going to be moving on to the second round. There are like 6 rounds overall. I mean, there's a fat chance he could get in, but with all your guys' help, maybe he could. Could you drop that real quick? QR code right there for James just to vote for him. It is free. 1 vote per day. You do need a Facebook, but it's really quick. Takes 30 seconds to do it. If you could please vote for my son, I'd really, really appreciate it. Also, I'll retweet it on my Twitter. If you're on my Facebook right now, you've seen all the videos. Please continue to vote. We just are greatly, greatly appreciative of all the support. Thank you.
Go James.
Go James. All right, that brings us to the end of another night on the Commissioner's Couch Fantasy Football Podcast, David. Episode 21 officially is wrapped up. Crazy, 21 already. It's been a ride. It's been a ride. The final 6 running backs are done, which brings a total of 18 that we've covered this offseason for the 2026 rookie running back class. Every week we peel back another layer. Every week this community shows up to learn, to debate with us all week and, dive deeper, than just surface level noise. And that's what makes this show special. We're not here to chase the same narratives everyone else is recycling. We're here to understand why players succeed, how their traits translate to the NFL, and what actually matters when they step onto an NFL field. And tonight's group, like I said, from power runners to space players to hybrid mismatches, they reminded us just how many different ways a running back can win. Mm-hmm. But next week we shift gears. We will not be live. I'm on vacation, but we will pre-record and post it at 7 on Thursday as we are going live normally. We are going to be heading into the tight end room. And while, this year's class isn't necessarily overflowing with names, the 6 guys we are covering bring, I think, real intrigue. Tight end is one of the hardest positions to evaluate because it demands so much. You need receiving ability. You need separation. You need blocking, which is a huge, huge major part of, the position. Athletic traits. You need competitive toughness. It's a position where the margin for error is razor thin and the learning curve is incredibly steep, especially going into the NFL. And the 6 tight ends we're breaking down next week, each brings something completely different to the table. David, you want to introduce them?
Yeah. So we've got these 6 tight ends. Wow. I almost said running backs.
Not again. Oh,
no. So Kenyon Sadiq, tight end from Oregon, obviously. Justin Jolly, tight end from North Carolina State. Eli Stowers, tight end from Vanderbilt. Oscar Delp, tight end from Georgia. Max Clare, tight end from Ohio State. And Jack Endries, tight end from Texas.
Yes, 6 tight ends, 1 episode. We're only doing 1 episode of tight ends. We're not going to break down more than that because the week after next week, obviously, is the NFL draft.
Woo!
Crazy. So we'll have a full breakdown of what matters for tight ends, what translate, and, who actually fits, in the modern NFL. So as always, thank you for spending your night with us. Thank you for supporting the show, sharing the episodes, voting for my son, James, wink, wink, please do that. Jumping into the comments and helping this community grow into something real. you guys make this fun, and you make this worth doing, and it's a lot of fun. So very grateful for David Cahoon. Follow him at David Cahoon24 on Twitter. I am Ryan Mosser. You can find me at Dynasty CLE. This has been the Commissioner's Couch Fantasy Football Podcast. We will see you next week. Rest up, stay sharp, and keep grinding that tape, guys.
See you later.